In today's session, we're going to talk about creating an invoice. The key concepts that go along with creating an invoice is that invoices are electronically delivered to the buyer. The buyer has full access to all of the information on the EC Utopia website. You can create an invoice from the original PO or an acknowledgement. You can add charges, allowances, or taxes to the entire order. Those charges, allowances, and taxes are set up by the buyer. You have to provide the carrier and tracking information. You can add notes and comments. You can change or add a remit if you need to. Just keep in mind that if you do change or add a remit, an email alert is sent off to the administrators at both the buyer and seller site. And then you can also update quantity and price information. To get started on creating our invoice, we select the document number that we want to create the invoice for. It takes us into the purchase order screen, much like all the other activities that we've taken, and we click on Create Invoice. Now that we're presented with a screen that gives us the option to create the invoice based off of the original PO or based off of an acknowledgement. If we select based off of an acknowledgement, if there's multiple acknowledgements that are associated with this purchase order, it brings those up. We click the box, say Create Invoice, and it brings us into the invoice creation screen. As we come into the invoice screen, you'll notice that there's 4 fields with red asterisks next to them. The red asterisk indicates that these are required fields, and you'll notice that only 2 of them require that you put in data, the invoice number and the tracking number. Invoice number must be a unique number. It can be a number or an alphanumeric or an alpha. Tracking number has to be completed, and this should be the tracking number that goes along with your shipment. You'll notice that the data is pre-keyed in for you so that way you don't have to go back and retype. The only fields that you have to type anything into are the invoice number and the tracking number. You can change the remit to if you'd like to, or if you need to. If you need, you can also add a new remit to. Remember, if you add or change on the remits, it sends an email off to each of the administrators that are on the buyer and the seller side. You can set this up as a one-time only to add it to this particular invoice, and you can also put a factor on the remit to. We can add charges and allowances if the buyer has set those up and if they've allowed those for this particular purchase order. So to add the charges and allowance, select a type. We're going to take a charge of a freight charge and for an amount, and we'll do it at $100. Hit add, and you'll see that our freight charge shows up. We'll say OK, and now it adds that freight charge over to the front side. We can do this for allowances and taxes, and again, these are at the entire order level. Some of the header level changes that we can make. Let's take a look at the line level. So at the line level, we can choose to not put an item on an invoice just by clicking those particular items. We can change the quantity. So if we only want to be able to bill for 15, we can change that. We can change the price if we need to. So if we want to make that 158. And if we'd like, we can also do charges and allowances at the line level. And again, charges and allowances are set up by the buyer. So in our particular case, the buyer has set up charges, allowances, and taxes. We're going to take a charge here. This is going to be a goods and service. Actually, we'll make it a tax. It's a goods and service tax. It's going to be a percentage or an amount. This is a percentage, and the percent will do 4%. Add, say OK, and over here you'll notice now that the goods and tax service shows up in red because remember, exceptions are in red. You'll see that the price is now in red because that's an exception. We made a change to that. So now we're ready to go ahead. We're going to hit send invoice, and it comes back with the warning. It says our invoice has to be committed. We'll make sure that we're ready to go. Hit OK. And our invoice has been sent. Click OK. Now we can go back over to the document management side of the world, and we can see that we have multiple invoices now on our order. So we come into our invoice, And we can see the note for the goods and services tax has been added, our notes from earlier, the freight allowance that we put at the header level, and we have the ability to save it as a PDF, save it to a CSV, print it out, or we can go ahead and cancel back out of the screen. It'll take it back to document management. The key lessons today on creating an invoice are that invoices are electronically delivered back to the buyer, and they have screens just like that you have where they can go back and they can view the invoices and print them out. The buyer has full access to all the information that's on the invoice. Invoices can be created from the original PO or from an acknowledgement, and if there's multiple acknowledgements, you can select the acknowledgement that you want to use. You can add charges, allowances, and taxes to the entire order or down at the line level. Carrier information and tracking information is required. You can add notes, comments, changes, or adds to a remit. Send an email alert off to the administrator at both the seller and the buyer side. You have the ability to update quantity and price information. At the end of it, you can print, save, and view the invoices. And one of the biggest things is the reminder that the data has been pre-entered for you so that you don't have to key it back in. All you have to do is enter in an invoice number and a tracking number, and the invoice is created. That wraps up this EC Utopia education video. We encourage you to use the help button in the application and to view all of our informational videos. If you have any questions, any suggestions or feedback, please let us know by sending us an email to support@ecutopia.com. Thank you and have a great day.